prison riot, the most violent uprising in U.S. history. The air was so thick with smoke that you could barely see the cell doors anymore. Sirens were screaming from every corner of the prison. Dozens of inmates were running through the destroyed hallway, swinging metal pipes, flipping beds, and smashing windows. Guards were trapped inside a control room as fire crawled up the walls. One inmate stood on the railing of the second tier, holding a broken broomstick like a spear, shouting, "We run this place now." This was the most violent prison uprising in U.S. history, an explosion of chaos that no one saw coming and no one was prepared for. And just when the guards thought things couldn't get worse, a deafening boom echoed across the block as someone blew open a steel door using stolen kitchen gas tanks. But before we get to that moment, before the flames, the explosions, and the riot that changed everything, let's rewind to how it all started. It began on a quiet morning inside Ridgefield State Penitentiary, a prison so overcrowded that men slept on the floor, ate cold meals, and showered under broken pipes. Everyone walked on edge. Tension sat in the air like dust. Marcus Big Red Johnson, a well-known inmate who'd been inside for 17 years, sat at a metal table in the day room. He wasn't the loudest guy, but everyone respected him. He kept the peace whenever things got too heated. But lately, even he felt the pressure building. Breakfast that morning was worse than usual. Watery eggs, stale bread, and a single scoop of something that looked like oatmeal but smelled like metal. Some inmates threw their trays on the floor. Others argued with officers. A guard yelled, "Eat it or leave it." An inmate fired back, "We ain't animals." That small moment, the kind you'd normally forget, was the spark. Later that afternoon, the prison went into a modified lockdown, meaning inmates were stuck in their units with no yard time. Tempers rose. Voices grew louder. By evening, arguments broke out over phones, over food, over nothing at all. But the moment that pushed everything over the edge came just after lights out. A young inmate named Devin got into a heated argument with Officer Wallace. No one knows exactly what was said, but a loud crash echoed through the tier. Then came shouting. Then came a scream. Within minutes, rumors spread across the block. Wallace hurt Devin. Devin didn't make it. They're covering it up. Whether true or not, the rumor changed everything. Whispers traveled fast. Doors slammed. Metal sharpened against concrete. Men who barely agreed on anything before suddenly had one shared thought. Tomorrow, something is going to break. And that next day, it did. Because in the middle of breakfast the following morning, an inmate threw his tray across the room and yelled, "We're done being silent." Chairs flipped. Alarms blared. Officers ran. And the entire block surged to its feet. With a single act, one tray hitting the ground, America's most violent prison riot began. And as the first punches were thrown, an even more shocking event happened right at the entrance of the chow hall. The moment that tray hit the ground, everything exploded. But what happened at the entrance of the chow hall sent the entire prison into full-blown chaos. As guards rushed in to control the fight, the main security gate, an iron door that almost never malfunctioned, suddenly jammed open. No one knew if someone sabotaged it, or if the years of rust finally snapped. But the second that door froze halfway, inmates from the hallway flooded in like a wave. The guards were outnumbered instantly. One officer got knocked off his feet as the crowd surged. Another slipped on spilled food trays. Someone grabbed a mop bucket and threw it across the room. The alarms overhead screamed, drowning out every warning from the officers. But in the middle of all the shouting, Marcus Big Red stood still, watching everything happen like he'd seen it coming. He grabbed Devin's closest friend, a nervous young inmate named Tyler, and said in a low voice, "This ain't the moment to be stupid. Stay close." Meanwhile, fights broke out across the chow hall. Some inmates swung fists. Others grabbed metal trays as shields. But there were also guys who didn't want any part of it. They stayed against the wall, hands up, hoping no one dragged them in. The riot wasn't organized. Not yet. It was just anger exploding everywhere, at once. Then a low excitement moment followed, a brief pause where everyone seemed to catch their breath. Inmates gasped for air, Guards screamed into radios, and the smell of spilled food mixed with sweat. For just a few seconds, it looked like things might calm down. But that was wishful thinking. Because at that exact moment, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Someone had smashed the glass panel of a fire emergency cabinet and pulled out a metal extinguisher. The sound of it hitting the floor made every head turn. A group of inmates rushed the hallway with the extinguisher held high, shouting, "It's our time." The hallway filled with blinding white spray as they unleashed the extinguisher like a smoke bomb. Guards coughed and stumbled, unable to see more than a foot in front of them. The riot was no longer just a fight. It had turned into a takeover. Marcus's eyes widened. He grabbed Tyler's arm. "We need to move. Now." But before they could escape the chow hall, an even more dangerous sight appeared at the far end of the hallway. A group of inmates had broken into the janitor's closet, and they were coming out holding metal broom handles, mop wringers, and a sharpened steel rod. The moment they stepped into the smoky hallway, every guard froze. Every inmate stared. And the riot entered its next and deadliest phase. The inmates with the broom handles and sharpened steel rods moved through the smoke like shadows. The hallway lights flickered above them, making the scene look even more unreal, like something out of a nightmare. Tyler whispered, "Big Red, they're armed now." Marcus didn't answer. He knew exactly what this meant. A simple riot could still be controlled. But once weapons appeared, things were about to turn deadly fast. Guards tried to regroup, shouting commands through the fog created by the fire extinguisher. "Back up. Fall into formation. Secure the chow hall." But the smoke was too thick, the room too chaotic, and the inmates too charged with anger to listen. One armed inmate swung a metal rod against the wall, sparks flying as if he was testing its strength. A less extreme moment followed, almost eerie in the middle of all the chaos. Some inmates began helping others breathe, fanning away the smoke with trays. Others backed against the wall, hands raised, begging not to be involved. The noise dipped for a second, replaced by confused shouting and coughing. For a brief moment, it felt like the riot's energy could collapse on itself, like everyone was unsure of what to do next. But that moment vanished instantly when someone yelled from the upper tier, "The control room is open." Every head snapped upward. The control room, where doors were unlocked, alarms were triggered, and the entire cell block could be manipulated, was the heartbeat of the prison. If inmates reached it, they could lock guards inside cells or open every door in the tier. It was the worst-case scenario. Marcus's heart dropped. "No, no, no," he muttered. "They can't get in there." But they already were. 3 inmates sprinted up the metal stairs, shoving aside anyone in their way. One carried a broken mop wringer like a battering ram. The closer they got to the control room, the louder the guards shouted from below. "Stop them! Someone stop them!" But with smoke burning their eyes and inmates blocking every path, the guards were helpless. Marcus knew he had no choice. He grabbed Tyler's arm. "We're heading upstairs. Now." They pushed through the crowd, dodging swinging arms, ducking flying trays, slipping past men shouting in panic. The stairs shook under the weight of bodies rushing up and down. As they reached the second tier, they heard the metallic crash of tools smashing into the control room door. Bang! 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 The small window in the door cracked. Inside, 2 terrified officers screamed into their radios. "Breach! They're trying to breach." Tyler grabbed Marcus's shirt. "We can't go up there." Marcus didn't slow down. "If they get that door open, kid, the whole prison goes under." But before Marcus could make it halfway down the tier, something unbelievable happened. The control room door popped open slightly from the force of the last hit. A thin line of bright light poured out, and the inmates cheered. The most dangerous moment of the riot, something the prison had always feared, was now seconds away. Inmates were about to take control of the entire facility. The second that thin line of light leaked from the cracked control room door, the entire tier erupted. Inmates were shouting, pounding on railings, stomping on the metal floor. It sounded like a stadium crowd, but one fueled by anger, fear, and adrenaline. The 2 officers inside the control room backed away from the door, shouting into their radios, their voices shaking. "We need backup now. They're breaching." Repeat, "They're breaching." But everyone knew backup would take minutes. The riot was spreading too fast. And in a prison riot, even a few seconds can change everything. The inmates with makeshift weapons pushed forward again.
Bang! Bang!
Another hit, and that door would swing open fully. A low moment followed, just a breath of hesitation that cut through the noise. Tyler tugged on Marcus's arm again. "Big Red, what are we gonna do?" Marcus looked down the tier, watching men he'd known for years, some who couldn't handle pressure, some who loved chaos, joining the push toward the door. He saw fear mixing with rage, desperation mixing with opportunity. "This was supposed to be about Devon," Marcus muttered. "Now it's turning into something no one can control." But he couldn't stand still. He ran forward, pushing past the crowd until he reached the group smashing the door. His deep voice roared over the chaos. "Stop! You break that door down, you get everyone killed." Some turned. Others ignored him. One of the inmates, Tucker, a tall guy with tattoos creeping up his neck, stepped forward, gripping the metal rod tight. "Move, Red. This ain't your call." Marcus held his ground. "You open that door, and the whole prison opens. You think these guards gonna negotiate? You think they'll let any of us walk out alive?" He pointed at the cameras overhead. "They'll flood this place with gas and rubber bullets. They might take the whole block down." The hallway fell into a temporary quiet, still tense, but calm enough for a few breaths. Tucker's eyes narrowed. "Too late for warnings, old man." And with that, he swung the rod again.
Bang!
The door shook violently. Inside, one of the officers screamed. Marcus lunged forward, trying to grab the rod, but another inmate shoved him hard against the railing. The riot snapped right back into chaos.
Bang!
The top hinge on the control room door bent inward. Guards at the far end of the tier finally managed to regroup. They formed a line, shields raised, batons ready, trying to push forward through the smoke. "Stand down," one shouted. "Get away from the control room." But the inmates weren't listening. Tyler yelled from behind Marcus. "Big Red, look." Marcus turned just in time to see Tucker lift the rod high for one final, devastating hit. Before Marcus could reach him, before the guards could respond, before anyone could process what was about to happen, a massive explosion of sparks burst from the damaged control room door. The entire metal frame lit up with a blinding flash. Tucker dropped the rod and stumbled back, screaming in pain. The electrical panel inside the door had short-circuited from the force of the hits. And worse, the control room door swung all the way open. The officers inside froze in terror. And every inmate on the tier surged forward at once. The most powerful room in the prison was now wide open, and in the hands of whoever reached it first. The moment the control room door flew open, it felt like time split in half before the breach and after it. The prisoners standing closest didn't wait a second. They lunged toward the doorway like a stampede. The two officers inside scrambled backward, knocking over chairs and slamming into the panel of blinking buttons. One officer screamed into his radio. "They've breached. They're inside the room. Send anyone now." But they already knew backup was too far away. Marcus shoved his way through the sea of bodies, trying to reach the control room before the wrong man got inside. But Tucker's crew was already rushing forward despite the sparks still shooting from the hinges. "Move," Tucker shouted, pushing another inmate aside. He wanted that room more than anyone. A huge inmate named Rosario grabbed the edge of the control panel and yelled, "Lock the doors. Lock the whole block down now." Tyler yelled behind Marcus, voice cracking, "Big Red, if they hit the wrong switch, the whole unit could open." And that was the truth. One wrong button, and every cell door in the prison might slide open at once. Meanwhile, a moment of calm, thin and fragile, cut through the chaos. Smoke drifted toward the ceiling vents. The alarms blared but felt distant under the pounding footsteps. Some inmates backed away, unsure. Others froze, watching in disbelief as the control room, the place they'd only ever seen from behind glass, was now right in front of them. But calm never lasts in a riot, because Tucker had already crossed the threshold. He lunged inside and grabbed the officer closest to him. The officer slipped and fell back with a thud. Tucker raised his foot like he was about to stomp down, and that's when Marcus finally reached him. He grabbed Tucker's shoulder and yanked him away from the officer. "Stop. This ain't what we came here for." Tucker spun around, eyes wild. "Get your hands off me." He shoved Marcus, so hard that Marcus stumbled into the control panel. And, in that single stumble, Marcus hit a switch. A thick, echoing chunk rolled across the tier, followed by another. And another. Tyler gasped. Big Red. Marcus froze. Every inmate on the tier turned toward the cells in shock. One by one, every door in the block began sliding open. Metal echoed like thunder as locks disengaged. Men who weren't even part of the riot stepped out of their cells, blinking in confusion. Some cheered. Some panicked. Some grabbed whatever they could find as weapons. The entire prison block was now open and uncontrolled. The guards at the far end of the tier stopped advancing. Their faces went pale. One whispered, "Oh God, they opened the whole unit." Marcus looked at his hands like he couldn't believe it. I didn't mean, but it didn't matter anymore. What was done. And Tucker seized the moment. He leaped onto the control panel table and shouted at the top of his lungs, "The prison is ours." The entire block shook with roaring voices. Marcus stepped back, heart racing. In minutes, the riot had become something even worse. A full-scale uprising. But the most dangerous part hadn't even started yet. Because from the lower level, deep inside the smoke, Tyler yelled again. "Big Red, look." Marcus turned toward the stairs and froze. A group of inmates had broken into the infirmary, and now they were pouring out carrying scalpels, syringes, and broken metal equipment. The riot had weapons before, but now it was armed. Really armed. And every guard left in the unit knew. This was their nightmare scenario. The moment the inmates came pouring out of the infirmary holding scalpels, broken four-poles, syringes, and metal trays sharpened into blades, the entire atmosphere inside the block changed. This was no longer chaos fueled by anger. This was chaos armed with tools that could do real, permanent damage. Tyler backed away fast. "Big Red, this is bad. This is really bad." Marcus saw it too. Men who'd been confused minutes ago were now grabbing weapons because everyone else was doing it. Fear mixed with adrenaline, and that combination is what turns a riot into a war. Guards at the far end of the tier tried to fall back, forming a tight shield line. One shouted, "Drop the weapons and back away." But the inmates only moved closer. In the middle of the craziness, a moment of quiet slid through the noise, just long enough for Marcus to think. He saw inmates he knew weren't violent picking up weapons simply because they felt cornered. Others grabbed syringes like they had nothing left to lose. For a heartbeat, it looked like the riot might choke under its own chaos. Men looked around, unsure whether to push forward or run. But then, someone from the crowd hurled a metal tray like a frisbee. It slammed against a guard's shield with a loud clang. And that one sound brought the chaos roaring back. A wave of inmates charged toward the guards. The officers tried to hold the line, but the push was too strong. The shields wobbled, boots slid, and bodies crashed together. The guards fell back step by step as the inmates pressed harder. Marcus yelled, "Stop. Stop. You're making it worse." No one listened. Tyler grabbed Marcus's arm. "They're gonna break through the guards." Marcus shook his head. "They won't hold the line if those guys with the scalpels reach them first." Down below, an inmate with a broken four-pole raised it like a spear and charged at a guard who'd fallen behind his team. The guard tried to scramble backward, but he slipped on spilled water from the fire sprinklers. Marcus didn't hesitate. He ran down the stairs at full speed, pushing through bodies, grabbing the charging inmate right before he reached the guard. Marcus slammed the man into the wall, knocking the four-pole out of his hands. "Fall back." Marcus barked at the guard. "Go." The guard didn't need to be told twice. He rolled away and rejoined his unit. But the inmates didn't see Marcus saving a guard. They saw him stopping another prisoner. Big Red's siding with them, someone shouted. That made the crowd shift. Eyes turned toward Marcus. Angry, confused, betrayed. Tyler raced down the stairs after him. Red, they think you're helping the guards. I don't care what they think, Marcus snapped. I'm trying to stop a slaughter. But it was too late. The wrong eyes had seen the wrong thing. Tucker shoved his way through the crowd, rage twisting his face. Look at him, he shouted. Big Red's trying to protect the COs. A murmur spread, then a roar. In seconds, Marcus went from respected peacemaker to target. Tucker raised a sharpened steel rod. Anyone standing with Marcus stands in our way. The crowd surged. Marcus pulled Tyler behind him. The tears shook from the stomping feet rushing toward them. And just when it looked like Marcus was about to be swallowed by the mob, a thunderous boom echoed through the prison. The lights flickered. The floor shook. A door somewhere in the distance blew open with explosive force. Every head turned. Smoke poured into the hallway from deep inside the prison. Someone had just blown open a door using the stolen kitchen gas tanks. The riot had just reached its most dangerous point yet. The explosion was so powerful it felt like the entire prison jumped off its foundation. Dust rained from the ceiling. Lights flickered overhead. The metal railings shook like they were made of paper. Everyone froze, guards, inmates, even Tucker. For the first time since the riot began, silence spread through the block like a wave. Tyler clung to the railing. Big Red, what was that? Marcus didn't move. His eyes were locked on the thick cloud of smoke rolling out from the far hallway. That, he said slowly, was the kitchen storage door. Someone blew it open. A second later, alarms deeper inside the prison began blaring, a different tone this time. A warning reserved only for catastrophic breaches. Tucker stepped forward, shock twisting into excitement. They got the gas tanks. They did it. Inmates rushed toward the smoky hallway, cheering like they had just won a battle. But Marcus knew better. He could feel it in the shaking floor, in the vibration of distant footsteps, in the tightening air. The riot had reached a point where no one, not the inmates, not the guards, was in control anymore. A brief, low moment settled. Marcus grabbed Tyler's shirt and pulled him close. Listen to me, once gas tanks get used, this stops being a riot. It turns into a full-blown war. The tactical teams outside? They're gearing up right now. Tyler swallowed hard. Like the SWAT teams? Marcus nodded.
Worse.
Prison tactical. They don't come to talk. They come to end things fast. But before Marcus could say anything else, another roar came from the smoke-filled hallway. A group of inmates stormed out carrying metal pipes, kitchen knives, and a fire axe that should have been locked behind steel. They were covered in soot, coughing, but smiling like men who had just unlocked a new level of destruction. Behind them, the kitchen door lay shredded by the blast, twisted metal blown outward like a peeled can. The crowd erupted again. Tucker raised his weapon. We take the yard next. If we control the yard, we control everything. Some inmates cheered. Others hesitated. Everyone looked to Marcus, even those who hated him right now. And that's when Marcus made a choice. He stepped onto the railing, raising his voice over the riot. Listen to me, he shouted. You take the yard, they'll answer with tear gas, rubber bullets, dogs, and batons. You think you're winning? You're not. You're giving them an excuse to kill every one of us. The armed inmates stopped. Tucker glared. Even the men holding the fire axe paused. For a moment, just a moment, the riot's momentum shook. Then Tucker stepped forward, pointing the steel rod at Marcus. Get down from there. You ain't our leader no more. Marcus stared him down. I'm not trying to lead you. I'm trying to save you. That only made Tucker angrier. He signaled his crew. Take him. Tyler's eyes widened. Red, run. But Marcus didn't run. He stood his ground, ready to defend himself. Before Tucker's men could reach him, however, a new sound boomed across the prison. A deep metallic whomph followed by the thunder of boots. The eastern gate had opened, not because inmates broke it, but because the tactical response teams had arrived. Fully armored. Shields out. Weapons ready. A robotic voice blasted through a megaphone. All inmates, down on the ground.
Now. Panic surged through the block.
Tucker shouted, "Don't back down. They're just COs with toys." But he was wrong. These weren't just guards. These were the prison's heavily armed emergency teams. And they marched in like an unstoppable wave. Marcus grabbed Tyler.
"This is it," he said.
"The part no one comes back from." And just as the tactical team raised their shields, one inmate at the front of the crowd lit something in his hand. A homemade firebomb. A ball of fire wrapped in cloth and gasoline. Tyler gasped. "Red, he's about to throw it." Marcus's eyes widened. Because if that firebomb hit the tactical line, this riot would go from historic
to deadly.
The inmate holding the firebomb stepped forward with shaky hands, the flames reflecting off his wide, panic-filled eyes. Everyone around him backed away, not because they disagreed, but because they knew exactly what was about to happen if he let that thing fly. The tactical team froze in formation, shields up, but even they shifted slightly. They were trained for riots, but fire? Fire changed the rules. Tyler grabbed Marcus's arm. "Red, he's gonna throw it. He's really gonna." Marcus didn't wait. He pushed through the crowd like a bull, ignoring the shouts, ignoring the weapons pointed at him. His only focus was the firebomb and the terrified kid holding it. "Don't!" Marcus roared. But Tucker heard Marcus and stepped in front of him, blocking his path with the steel rod. "Let him do it," Tucker sneered. "Let's see how tough those armored boys really are." Marcus clenched his fists. "You throw that, people die. Not one or two, dozens." Tucker smirked.
"Good."
A collective gasp rippled through the inmates. Even those who supported the riot were shocked by Tucker's coldness. The riot had started over anger, injustice, fear. But now Tucker wanted blood. For a moment, a quiet, heavy low settles in the air. Like the entire prison was holding its breath. The firebomb kid's hand trembled harder. His knuckles turned white. He wasn't a hardened killer. He was just desperate, scared, swept up in a storm bigger than him. Marcus took one careful step forward. "Son," he said softly, "you throw that and this place burns for real. SWAT won't use rubber bullets after that. They'll storm in with live rounds. You won't make it 10 feet. The kid's breathing got faster. Sweat dripped down his forehead. He looked between Marcus, Tucker, the tactical team, the roaring crowd. He was trapped in a choice he never wanted. But Tucker wasn't letting Marcus win. He grabbed the kid's wrist. "Throw it.
Now."
Marcus surged forward and grabbed Tucker's arm. The two men collided like bulls. The firebomb slipped from the kid's fingers. Everyone screamed, and the burning bottle fell toward the floor. Tyler shouted, "Red." Marcus didn't think, he dove. He hit the ground hard, slamming both hands around the firebomb just before it shattered. Flames licked dangerously close to his face as he smothered the cloth with his shirt, choking out the fire with sheer force and desperation. The crowd went silent. Even Tucker stared in shock, unable to believe Marcus just saved the tactical team and the inmates from a massacre. Marcus lay on the floor, coughing from the smoke, sweat dripping down his forehead as he held the extinguished bomb in his hands. He stood slowly, looked Tucker dead in the eyes, and growled, "You want a war? Start it with me." A ripple of tension shot through the crowd. Tyler's voice shook. "Red, don't do this." Tucker grinned, cold, sharp, ready. "Oh, I'll start it with you," he said, lifting the steel rod. Before the fight could break out, a booming blast shook the entire tier.
Boom.
A second explosion echoed from the west wing. Everyone turned. Smoke shot out of the laundry hall. Flames flickered from underneath the metal door. Someone had detonated something even bigger. The lights overhead flickered. Sprinklers burst on. The entire prison trembled. Tyler covered his head. "Red, another gas tank." They hit the laundry room. Marcus stared at the spreading fire, his stomach twisting. "If the fire hits the chemical storage," he whispered, "the whole block could blow." Tucker smirked like it was all part of his plan. But for the first time, fear flickered across his face. The tactical team yelled, "Fall back." Fire in the west wing. All inmates down now. But the inmates weren't going down. They backed away. They screamed. They ran in different directions. A riot was one thing. A firestorm was another. And the flames were already crawling up the walls. Marcus grabbed Tyler and shouted, "We have minutes, maybe less. We need to move. Now." But before they could run, 3 inmates rushed out of the flaming laundry room carrying something heavy. A giant industrial propane tank. And the moment Marcus saw it, his heart dropped. Because if that tank blew, the entire block would be erased. The 3 inmates carrying the propane tank stumbled into the hallway, coughing through thick black smoke. The metal cylinder banged against the floor, each hit echoing like a countdown. The tank was massive, big enough to blow apart half the block if it ignited. Tyler's eyes widened in pure terror. "Red, that thing'll kill everybody." Marcus felt his heart slam inside his chest. He'd seen explosions before, but nothing on this scale. If flames reached even a small leak, the tank would turn the entire prison into twisted steel and fire. "Put it down," Marcus roared. But the inmates were panicking. Their faces were red from smoke, their hands shaking. They weren't carrying the tank because they wanted to. They were carrying it because they had no idea how to escape the fire behind them. Tucker stepped forward, wild-eyed. "Bring it here. We'll use it to blow open the yard door." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Are you insane?" he shouted. "You'll kill everyone." Tucker grinned. "Good." That one word sent a chill through even the most aggressive inmates. A moment of low tension washed over them. Fear, confusion, disbelief. Inmates looked at the tank, at Tucker, at the fire spreading behind them. Even the ones who had followed Tucker earlier now hesitated. One inmate whispered, "Man, this ain't a riot no more. This is suicide." Marcus took a step forward, raising both hands. He kept his voice steady. "Put it down. Slowly. Don't drop it. Don't roll it. Just put it down." The prisoners holding the tank looked unsure. One nodded. Another took a small step back. But the third, his legs buckled from exhaustion. The tank slammed against the floor. Clong! Everyone flinched. A hiss escaped from the valve. Tyler screamed, "It's leaking." A thin line of gas sprayed out, barely visible, whisper soft, but deadly. The smell hit instantly, sharp and chemical. Marcus grabbed Tyler and pulled him back. "Get away from it." Tucker yelled, "Don't run. Close the valve." He stepped forward, trying to grab the tank. But Marcus blocked him. "Touch that thing, and we're all dead." Tucker snarled, "Get out of my way." Before he could finish, flames from the laundry hallway crawled across the floor toward the gas cloud. Slow, silent, deadly. Every inmate saw it, at the same time. The fire was moving like a living thing, heading straight for the leaking propane. A new wave of panic ripped through the prisons. Men screamed. Some ran. Some froze. Some dropped to the floor praying. Marcus shoved Tucker out of the way and sprinted toward the tank. Tyler screamed behind him, "Red, what are you doing?" Marcus threw his body over the valve, trying to block the gas leak with his shirt. He held his breath, tightening the fabric, pushing with everything he had. But the fire was coming. Faster. Hotter. Crawling toward the gas like it wanted it. "Red, move," Tyler shouted. Marcus pressed the shirt harder, but it wasn't sealing fully. Tucker rushed over with the steel rod, lifting it like he was about to strike. Marcus snarled, "Hit this tank and I swear." "I'm not hitting the tank," Tucker roared. "I'm hitting that." He drove the rod into the burning debris on the floor, knocking the flames backward. For once, just once, Marcus and Tucker had the same goal. "Push it back. Push it back," Marcus yelled. The two men beat at the flames, pushing them away from the gas trail inch by inch. But the fire was too fast. It surged forward again. Then, from deep inside the prison, a massive mechanical thunk echoed. The sprinklers on the west wing finally activated. Jets of water blasted down like rain. Steam exploded from the fire as the water hit it. The flames hissed, shrank, then smothered into nothing. Marcus collapsed backward, gasping for air. Tucker stumbled away, coughing. The inmates holding the tank dropped it and ran back into the crowd. Tyler rushed to Marcus's side. "Red, are you okay?" Marcus nodded weakly. "Still here." But even as the fire died, a new problem was growing. The water raining down from the sprinklers began to spread the gas across the floor, pushing it toward the tactical team's line. And the tactical team noticed. The officer with the megaphone shouted, "All units, gas leak in the block. Fall back now." But there was one more sound, a sound that froze every inmate in place. A heavy metal door slammed open on the upper tier. Someone had just broken into the gun locker. Tyler's face went pale. "Red, they got weapons." Marcus pushed himself up, eyes wide with dread. In the doorway stood two inmates holding actual firearms. Shotguns stolen from the emergency arsenal. The riot had just turned into something far worse. Something no one could walk away from unchanged. The moment the two inmates stepped out onto the upper tier holding shotguns, the entire prison seemed to stop breathing. Even the alarms felt quieter. Every inmate froze. The tactical team froze. Marcus froze. Guns inside a prison riot weren't just dangerous. They were the exact nightmare every CO, warden, and tactical officer trained for. The inmate in front, Jerome Bones Harris, held the shotgun like he'd been waiting his whole life for it. His hands were steady. His eyes were cold. The second inmate, a younger guy named Malik, looked terrified but determined. Tyler whispered, "Red, we're dead. We're all dead." Marcus stepped in front of him. "Stay behind me." The armed inmates walked to the railing, each step echoing through the block. Below them, hundreds of prisoners stared up in a mix of fear and excitement. Some stepped back. Some whispered. Some cheered quietly, not sure if cheering would make them targets. A low moment crept over the crowd, a silence filled with dread. Then Tucker whispered, "This is how you win a war." Marcus shot him a glare. "This is how you start a massacre." From across the block, the tactical team raised their shields and aimed launchers. The megaphone voice thundered, "Drop the firearms immediately. This is your final warning." Bones smirked. He had no fear. He felt powerful, too powerful. "You ain't giving orders no more," he yelled. "We run this place now." He pumped the shotgun. The sound echoed like thunder. Tyler grabbed Marcus's arm, voice breaking. "Red, he's gonna shoot." But Marcus knew something worse. If Bones fired even one shot, the tactical team would unleash hell. No rubber bullets, no tear gas. They'd go full lethal. Marcus stepped forward, cupping his hands around his mouth.
"Bones.
Listen to me." Bones turned, annoyed. "Don't start your preachin', Red." "You fire that gun," Marcus shouted, "and every man in this block dies. Not 50. Not 100, everybody." Bones shrugged. "Then they shouldn't have pushed us this far." Malik's hands trembled on the second shotgun. He wasn't built for this. He didn't want to be holding that weapon, but now he couldn't let it go without looking weak. Marcus looked him dead in the eyes. "Malik, that thing kicks harder than you think. You fire it, it'll knock you off that tier." Malik swallowed. His grip loosened. Just a little. Bones didn't like that. "Hold it tight," he snapped. "We're taking the yard next. Once we got the shotguns, they ain't stopping us." Marcus saw the shift. Bones wasn't planning to surrender. He wasn't planning to negotiate. He was planning a shootout. But before Marcus could move closer, a distant explosion rocked the prison again.
Boom.
Everyone staggered. Dust fell. Lights flickered violently. Tyler screamed. "Another one?" "What now?" From the far end of the block, a fireball shot out of an electrical closet. Someone had overloaded the wires trying to break through a locked grate. Sparks shot across the floor. And the gas from the propane leak was still lingering. Marcus's stomach dropped. "The fire's moving toward them," he whispered. Tucker spun around. "Toward who?" Marcus pointed at the upper tier. "Toward the armed inmates. Toward Bones and Malik." Bones saw the flames creeping along the wall behind him. His cocky smile faded. "What the?" Marcus yelled. "Put the guns down and move." Bones hesitated. Malik panicked. The younger inmate stepped backward. His foot slipped on wet metal. "Malik!" Marcus shouted. The shotgun in Malik's hands jerked upward.
Boom.
The entire block flashed white. The blast wasn't from the shotgun firing at someone. It was from the shotgun firing into the ceiling at point-blank range. The recoil ripping Malik off his feet. He fell over the railing. "No!" Tyler screamed. Marcus lunged forward. But he wasn't close enough. Malik crashed down onto a table below, the shotgun clattering beside him. Inmates scrambled away from his body, yelling in shock. Bones roared with rage, raising his shotgun. "Red, this is your fault." He aimed the barrel directly at Marcus and pulled the trigger.
Click.
The gun jammed. Marcus didn't wait. He ran. Bones cursed and began pumping the shotgun again. But the fire creeping along the wall finally reached the leaking propane trail. A deafening FWOMPH ignited across the entire upper tier. Bones was swallowed in a blast of heat, smoke, and explosive fire. Inmates ran for their lives. Tactical teams charged forward. Sprinklers burst open. The entire prison block turned into a storm of flames, screams, and chaos. Marcus grabbed Tyler and pulled him behind a fallen table. "Stay down," he yelled. "It's about to get worse." Because through all the screaming, all the fire, all the explosions, there was one last sound. A heavy metal gate opening deep inside the prison. Someone had unlocked the administrative wing. And whoever did it wasn't an inmate. The roar of the flames rattled the entire block. Smoke poured down from the upper tier, sirens screamed. Inmates ran in every direction, and the tactical team pushed deeper with shields raised. But that last sound, the heavy metal gate opening inside the administrative wing, cut through everything like a knife. Marcus lifted his head just enough to look toward the far hallway. He expected to see more smoke, more inmates, maybe even another part of the riot spreading. But instead, a group of high-ranking officers stepped out. Not guards. Not tactical teams. Not negotiators. These were the administrators, the men who normally stayed locked behind thick doors and bulletproof glass. The warden, 2 deputy wardens, and several command officers, all wearing riot vests and emergency gas masks. Tyler pulled on Marcus's shirt. "Why are they coming out here?" "They never come out here." Marcus's voice was low. "Because when the admin wing opens during a riot, it means they're taking over." The warden raised a bullhorn. "All inmates, down on the ground. This is your final order." No one listened. Not because they didn't want to, but because the fire kept pushing people back. The smoke choked the air, and panic drowned out every command. Tucker, burned and coughing, tried to rally the inmates again. "Don't listen. They're bluffing. They won't." He didn't finish. A tactical officer fired a pepper ball launcher, and a red burst hit Tucker square in the chest. He collapsed, screaming, the chemical powder burning his skin and eyes. Tyler flinched. "Red, they're ending it." "Not yet," Marcus muttered. The tactical teams advanced fast, methodical, ruthless, trained for this exact nightmare. They didn't run. They didn't yell. They simply moved forward as one thick armored wall. They fired more pepper balls. Then flashbangs.
Then rubber rounds.
Inmates dropped, stunned, blinded, screaming, holding their ears as deafening blasts echoed across the block.
Boom. Boom.
Each flash filled the smoke like lightning trapped in a cage. Tyler covered his ears. I can't take another one." Marcus shielded him with his body. "Stay with me." But even with the tactical teams pushing in, the fire spreading, and the warden giving orders, the riot still wasn't truly under control.
Not yet.
Because the propane tank was still leaking. The upper tier was still burning. And hundreds of inmates were still trapped. The warden realized it too. "Evacuate the block," he shouted. "Move them out now." For the first time, tactical teams focused not just on forcing inmates down, but pulling them toward exits. Some resisted. Some surrendered. Most were too shocked to move without being dragged. Marcus grabbed Tyler's arm. "This way. Move." They ran along the back wall, staying low as more flashbangs exploded around them. Inmates were tackled, cuffed, sprayed, shoved toward the doors. Some begged for mercy. Others screamed curses. Others sat in shock, staring at the burning upper tier like they still couldn't believe the riot had gone this far. As Marcus and Tyler reached the exit, a guard grabbed Marcus's shoulder. "Move it. Keep going." Marcus didn't fight. He didn't argue. He kept Tyler in front of him, pushing him towards safety. But just as they reached the doorway, the propane tank finally reached its breaking point. A sound like a giant metal drum being crushed filled the block. KRRRNNKKKKK. Then, the entire block shook as a massive fireball erupted from the upper tier. The explosion blew out windows, ripped banners from the walls, and sent a wave of heat blasting down the hall. The tactical team dove. Guards hit the floor. Inmates screamed and covered their heads. The whole prison shook. And then, just as quickly, the fireball died down, consumed by sprinklers and smoke. Marcus and Tyler tumbled into the hallway outside the block, coughing, shaking, covered in soot. They lay on the floor for a long moment, just breathing, just alive. Tyler finally whispered, "Red, is it over?" Marcus stared at the burning block behind them, at the smoke rolling through the doorway, at the tactical teams pulling out injured inmates, at the medical crews rushing in. "At least this part is," he said quietly. "But the story? The consequences? The scars? That's just starting." And he was right. By nightfall, the riot would be declared the most violent prison uprising in U.S. history. Dozens injured, multiple dead, entire units destroyed, national headlines, investigations, lawsuits, families demanding answers. And those who survived, guards and inmates, would never forget what happened inside those walls. Tyler leaned against him, exhausted. "Thank you for saving me." Marcus placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Just stay alive. That's all you owe me." Sirens echoed through the prison yard as they were escorted toward temporary holding areas. Smoke floated above the rooftops like a black cloud marking the end of a long nightmare. The riot was over, but the prison would never be the same again. And neither would the men who lived through it.